My brother stole my girlfriend and framed me. Now, 6 years later, they're all begging for forgiveness. I, a 24-year-old man, feel as though the ones who were meant to love me the most have ripped my life apart. I'm still having trouble accepting that this all began 6 years ago. I had been dating Emily, a 24-year-old woman, since high school. We grew up with our parents, who were childhood friends, and our families were quite close. I believed that I would eventually marry her. We had acquaintances, attended the same schools, and even took family trips together. I genuinely thought we would be together forever because she was my first love. Alex, my older brother, is 28 years old. He has always been my parents' favorite child, smart, gregarious, and successful. Before everything broke apart, I didn't think it would matter. Emily accused me of sexually assaulting her 6 years ago. I was caught off guard. Why would she say something like that when we had been together for years? It was unbelievable to me. Alex intervened and supported her, which made everything worse. He claimed to have been protecting her when he told our parents that he had witnessed me acting improperly toward her at a party. My parents immediately accepted his story. My side of the story wasn't even requested. They had complete faith in Emily and Alex. The entire community turned against me, and I was expelled from the house in a matter of days. I had considered Emily's family to be a second family, but they also severed all connections. My reputation, my family, and my girlfriend were all lost. My parents informed me that unless I received assistance for something I hadn't even done, they would not want to see me again. I had nowhere to go at the age of 18. In the end, I crashed at a friend's house, but I was devastated on an emotional level. I resorted to drunkenness and melancholy, doing everything to dull the hurt of being dumped and wrongly accused by the people I trusted most. I had a hard time moving on for years. I started going to treatment, moved to a new city, and gradually began to restore my life. But I was still troubled by the treachery. I was so afraid that others would be unfaithful to me, like Emily and Alex, that dating was practically impossible. I never made an effort to get in touch with my family, and they never did. They expelled me on false pretenses, and I couldn't forgive them for it. Then everything changed around 6 months ago. Lisa, an old friend of Emily's, contacted me. She informed me she had to confess something because she could no longer bear the guilt. Lisa disclosed that while we were still together, Emily and Alex had been seeing one another behind my back. They had been in love for years and made up the fake accusation to get me out of the picture. When Emily decided to leave me for Alex, he was confident that my parents would believe him, and it was successful. After I got kicked out, Emily and Alex started dating. They are now married and appear to be leading a beautiful life. Lisa went to my parents after being honest with me. She wanted them to know that they had thrown away their son for a lie because my folks were surprised. Lisa clarified how Alex had deceived Emily and how they had both made me the victim. Soon after, my parents contacted me and begged to meet and speak. They were inconsolable, sobbing over the phone as they apologized for not trusting me. They acknowledged that their love for Emily and their faith in Alex had caused them to become blinded. Initially, I was angry. Instead of feeling satisfied that I had finally been proven right, they wanted to make things right as if nothing had happened. The worst part is that Alex and Emily are forgiven. According to my parents, family is family, and what's done is done. They have even let Emily back into their lives and still adore Alex. They now want us all to make amends, move on from the past, and pretend that I wasn't destroyed by the previous 6 years. Their most recent attempts to contact me have gone unanswered. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to forgive them for their actions because Alex and Emily are family. They expect me to simply get over it after throwing me out on false pretenses and leaving me when I most needed them. So, even after my family learned the truth, am I the fool for severing our relationship? It's reasonable to tell them that I don't want to be a part of their lives as long as they continue to have Alex and Emily in them. They ought to hold Alex and Emily accountable and disown them if they genuinely regret their actions. That makes perfect sense. I definitely don't think I would want them back either, given the harm done in the 6 years it took to find out. The golden child will always be preferred by parents like them. It required a bystander to come forward and expose this horrible plot 6 years after I lost all ties to my former life. I would really consider bringing a slander lawsuit against my brother and his ex because they are all terrible people. Your family wishes to ignore this. They ought to have invested the same amount of effort in repairing your reputation and severing your connections with Emily and Alex. Going back to this familial dynamic would only make things worse for you. Moving on with your life and avoiding further pain is the wisest course of action. Update. Hello to everybody. I've read all of the suggestions and remarks made by others. I want to start by saying thank you so much for your support, which truly helped me put things in perspective. Since I tend to act rashly, I spoke with my therapist and close friends following this incident and made a decision. I've decided that neither Emily nor Alex will face legal action from me, nor will I pursue retribution of any kind. I simply want this to end. After everything I've been through, they and my family are not worth any more of my energy. I need to move on because dragging this through the legal system for slander or defamation will simply make me feel more bound to the past. It became evident to me after speaking with my therapist that retaining the anger was only making me feel worse. I choose not to allow this to rekindle old scars, since I've spent so many years starting over in my life through therapy, overcoming my alcoholism, landing a job I enjoy, and developing a new network of genuine friends. I decided to let my family know that I don't want to communicate with them. I clarified that I have no interest in reliving the past or acting as though things could return to as they were. I wished them well and expressed my hope that they would be able to move on without me. I then blocked their phone numbers. Alex and Emily purchased burner phones with new numbers to call me for a few hours, but I haven't returned any of their calls. Their insistence on apologizing and reassembling the family only after everyone else has discovered what they truly did enrages me. Some may argue that I ought to have put up a stronger fight or held them accountable, but I'm done. I no longer require their approval or an apology. I have decided to permanently close this chapter. The news of Emily and Alex's actions spread throughout the community since I was raised in a small town. I suppose word got around fast. My parents have been publicly humiliated and people are now boycotting Alex's company to get away from the city. Emily's parents and I are considering relocating to the country. I am aware of this because I constantly receive messages about how my activities are impacting others, which is, to be honest, rather crazy. Nevertheless, I am somewhat proud that they aren't getting away with it. A few others also wanted to know how I made ends meet. This occurred after I graduated from high school. With student loans, I was able to enroll in a comparatively good college because of my respectable grades. Before I landed a job in my profession, I worked at a few odd jobs. Although it's a starting salary, it's better than what I had previously. Since I was able to live with friends after college, I must admit that in spite of my enormous student loan debt, I'm very content with my life. Given everything I've gone through, I also want to address the claims made by some that this was a hoax because of my previous posts. It is a joint account between myself and my pals. We may have come together because we have all experienced trauma and difficult family issues. However, I would like to thank everyone for their support and guidance. 6 years have passed and it still seems unbelievable that I could have experienced any of this. I felt more confident to take the necessary action after reading your advice. Thank you. I'm hoping that this will allow me to go forward without turning around. Now to the next story. My best friend abandoned her baby with me. Now she's back to take her for a trust fund inheritance after her mother-in-law's death. We were freshmen at State University in 2013, which is when I first met Penelope, a 29-year-old woman. Our first encounter occurred when she wanted to borrow my notes after missing class due to the flu. We were both majoring in computer science. Following that, we began attending lectures together and eventually found ourselves in the same study group. We had a close-knit group of friends during our first 2 years of college. 6 of us would get together every Friday to study in the campus coffee shop before going to the neighborhood pizza place for dinner. Because Penelope and I were both only kids from middle-class households attempting to succeed in the computer industry, we quickly became close friends. After our junior year, we both decided to pursue internships, and she landed a coveted one at a local startup while I went with a bigger firm. One of the last things she told me was, "You're going to be so successful. I can't wait to see where life takes you." Then everything shifted. During our senior year, Penelope met and quickly fell in love with Robert, a 30-year-old man who came from a wealthy family and had his own tech company. By the time graduation came, they were engaged and soon married. Shortly thereafter, Penelope was pregnant. I watched her entire life change in the span of 2 years. Suddenly, her priorities shifted entirely toward being a perfect wife and mother. In 2020, during the pandemic, Penelope reached out to me to tell me that she was pregnant with her second child. She expressed a deep sense of despair. I tried my best to be supportive, but I realized I could only provide so much emotional comfort over the phone. I moved back home shortly thereafter, and the day before my flight, I received a frantic message from Penelope asking if she could stay with me for a few days because Robert was out of town. I immediately agreed. I had no idea what a whirlwind it would turn into. The moment she stepped off the plane, she appeared different, more drained, anxious, and overwhelmed. I listened to her recount the chaotic scenes of taking care of 2 small kids alone, feeling as if she was crumbling under the weight of it all. Her narrative tugged at my heartstrings. I ended up inviting her to stay with me much longer than just a few days. I would help her in exchange for keeping me company. However, things escalated. I woke up one morning to find her gone with the baby. She left me a text saying, "I was taken aback but knew how much she had struggled, so I agreed to take care of the little one." I had gotten attached. Weeks turned into months and her visits became sporadic. I reached out to her numerous times to check on her, but she never responded. Meanwhile, I began to notice that the baby was calling me mama and actively seeking comfort from me. I felt like I was a mother in a way. My heart was invested, and I started to think about my own life. Was I ready for motherhood? By the time the baby turned 1, I had virtually raised her on my own. I loved her like she was my own child. However, all this time, I never had a solid conversation with Penelope about how long this arrangement would last. I was hoping that at some point she would come back and take over. Then, just as I was settling into a routine, I received a call from Penelope. She informed me that her mother-in-law had passed away and that there was a trust fund that would be handed to Penelope's kids. She wanted to come by and collect her daughter, claiming that she was now able to take care of her. I was shocked and devastated. I tried to explain to her that I had raised the baby and that she was already attached to me. Penelope, however, was adamant that she was the mother and had the right to take her back. She asked me if I could meet her halfway, but I refused. After all this time, she didn't even ask how I was doing. I told her that it would be unfair to uproot the child from a stable environment after she had formed a bond with me. I thought I was being fair, but Penelope became furious, calling me selfish and asking if I thought I could just keep her baby forever. She said that it was a temporary arrangement and that I was only a babysitter. Now she wants to sue me for custody of the child, claiming she has the legal right to her. I feel so conflicted because I do want her to have her daughter back, but at the same time, I can't help but feel that I have become the mother figure in her life. I am reaching out to see if I am in the wrong here. Am I really selfish for wanting to keep the child I have raised? Should I let her take her back, even after I have put so much into raising her? Update: the days following my confrontation with Penelope were filled with turmoil. I had never expected our friendship to spiral into something so contentious, especially not over a child I had grown to love as my own. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, and every time I looked at the baby girl whom I had affectionately named Mia, it felt like a tug of war was happening in my heart. Mia had blossomed in my care. She was now walking, babbling her first words, and lighting up my days with her laughter. I had built a routine around her story time before bed, afternoon walks in the park, and countless moments of play. It was a joy I hadn't anticipated, one that filled a void in my life I hadn't even recognized was there. But the reality of Penelope's demands loomed over me like a storm cloud. I knew I had to respond, not just for myself, but for Mia. The thought of her being taken away was unbearable, yet I understood that Penelope was her mother no matter how far she had drifted from that role. I decided to consult with a lawyer. The very idea of legal proceedings sent a shiver down my spine, but I needed to understand my rights and the potential paths forward. The lawyer, a kind woman named Karen, listened patiently as I poured out my heart. She emphasized the importance of establishing a legal guardianship. Understand that courts tend to favor biological parents, she cautioned. But you have a strong case if you can show that you've been her primary caregiver. That night, as I lay in bed, listening to Mia's soft snores, I contemplated my options. It was clear I would need to prepare for a battle, not just for custody, but for Mia's emotional well-being. I didn't want her to grow up feeling torn between two families. I wanted her to feel secure and loved. The next day, I reached out to Penelope. I knew it was time to talk again, to try to find common ground. I suggested we meet in a neutral place, like the park where I often took Mia. I hoped that seeing her daughter's joy might soften her heart. When the day arrived, I arrived early, anxiety churning in my stomach. Mia was happily playing with her toys on a picnic blanket I had set out. As I watched her, my heart ached with love and protectiveness. This was my little girl, my responsibility, and I would do anything to keep her safe. Penelope showed up a few minutes later, her expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. It was clear that the time apart had not dimmed her bond with Mia. She approached with an eagerness that was hard to ignore. But as she knelt down to greet her daughter, I felt a pang of jealousy and fear. "Hi, sweetheart," Penelope said, her voice softening as she scooped Mia into her arms. The baby squealed with delight, and for a moment it felt like the air around us had shifted. There was love, but also a tension that was palpable. "Penelope, I want to talk about this," I began, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling within. "Mia has been with me for over a year now. I've cared for her, watched her grow, and she sees me as her mom." "I know, and I appreciate what you've done," Penelope replied, her eyes glistening with tears. "But I am her mother. I want to be a part of her life again. I thought we could find a way to make this work." "What does that mean?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. "You've been absent for so long, how do I know you'll stick around this time?" "I'm ready now," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I have a trust fund for her, and I want to provide for her. I have a plan, and I'll be a good mother, I promise." We spoke in circles, our emotions flaring and subsiding like the tide. I could see the desperation in her eyes, and I felt for her, but my instinct was to protect Mia. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the park, I knew I had to make a decision that would affect all our lives. "Penelope," I finally said, taking a deep breath. Her face fell, and I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. "So you want to keep her away from me?" she challenged, crossing her arms defensively. "No, I want her to have both of us," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. "But she needs stability. I need to know you're committed." The conversation ended on an uneasy note, both of us walking away with our hearts heavy. I could see that Penelope was struggling with the reality of what she had lost, while I was left grappling with the uncertainty of the future. As the weeks passed, I remained in contact with my lawyer and began the process of securing legal guardianship. It felt surreal, the legalities surrounding something so deeply personal, but I was determined to protect Mia's home and the life we had built together. Penelope continued to visit, but the strain in our interactions grew. Every time she left, I would find myself filled with anxiety, wondering if this would be the last time I'd see her. Mia remained blissfully unaware of the conflict, her laughter ringing out as she played with her toys, and each giggle pierced through the tension like a beacon of hope. The court date finally arrived. I was a bundle of nerves waiting for my name to be called. When I entered the courtroom, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was surrounded by legal jargon and the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to the warmth of my home with Mia. As I sat on the witness stand, I recounted the past year, the sleepless nights, the first words, the laughter, and the tears. I spoke of the bond I had forged with Mia, how she had become the center of my universe. I saw Penelope sitting across the room, her face a mask of sorrow and regret. When it was her turn to speak, her voice trembled with emotion. She described her desire to be a part of Mia's life. It was clear she was remorseful, but I couldn't ignore the time she had lost. As the judge deliberated, I felt the enormity of what was at stake. I wanted nothing more than for Mia to have both of her parents, but I also had to think of her well-being. The moments we shared in our little world were priceless, and I was terrified of losing that. Finally, the judge returned and the room fell silent. "After considering the circumstances and the bonds formed, I have determined that it is in the best interest of the child to maintain the current living arrangement with the foster parent, with supervised visitation rights for the biological mother." Relief washed over me, but I also felt a pang of guilt as I glanced at Penelope, whose face crumpled in despair. I reached for my phone, sending her a quick message, "We need to talk." As we left the courthouse, I found her sitting on a bench, tears streaming down her cheeks. I approached slowly, unsure of how to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. "Penelope," I said softly, "I want you to be part of Mia's life. I don't want this to be the end for you." She looked up, her eyes red and puffy. "I thought I could come back and be the mother I should have been. I just didn't realize how much I'd lost." "Then let's figure this out together," I proposed, sitting beside her. "You can visit her. Let's take baby steps. We can create a new kind of family." It was a small beginning, but it felt like the first step towards healing. I wasn't sure how it would all play out, but for Mia's sake I wanted us to try. As I drove home that evening, Mia babbling happily in her car seat, I felt a sense of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I had faith that we could navigate this new dynamic together. After all, love, whether it came from a mother, a friend, or a caregiver, was what truly mattered. The journey ahead would be uncharted, but with patience, understanding, and perhaps a little forgiveness, I believed we could forge a new path for Mia, one filled with love, laughter, and the promise of family, no matter what shape it took. Final update. In the months that followed the court ruling, life began to settle into a new rhythm. The initial tension between Penelope and me gradually transformed into a cautious partnership centered around Mia. We set up regular visitations weekly at first, then expanding to biweekly. It wasn't easy, and each meeting was charged with unspoken emotions, but we both understood the importance of maintaining Mia's connection to her mother. Penelope was determined to prove herself. She came prepared for every visit, bringing toys and books, eager to engage with Mia. I observed her closely, watching as she navigated the challenges of being a parent after such a long absence. There were moments of awkwardness, of uncertainty, but also glimpses of the mother Mia deserved. "Mama!" Mia would shout with delight as Penelope entered the room, her face lighting up like a sunrise. In those moments I felt a mix of pride and protectiveness. I wanted Penelope to succeed. I wanted Mia to experience the joy of having both parents in her life. Over time, I noticed a shift in Penelope. She started attending parenting workshops and therapy sessions, embracing the responsibility of being a mother. Each time we met, it was a delicate dance, but we were both committed to ensuring Mia felt loved and secure. One sunny afternoon, we arranged a picnic at the park. I packed sandwiches and juice, and Penelope brought along a colorful blanket and a kite she had been excited to share with Mia. As we spread out the blanket, the atmosphere was light, filled with laughter and the sound of children playing nearby. Mia was ecstatic, her laughter ringing out as she ran after the kite, pulling it through the grass as Penelope guided it higher. I watched, my heart swelling with pride at the sight of them together. It was a moment I had hoped for, a glimpse of a family finding its footing, redefining what it meant to be connected. After the kite soared high into the blue sky, we settled down to eat. I looked at Penelope, her hair gently tousled by the breeze, a smile on her face as she watched me munching on her sandwich. "You're doing great," I said, breaking the comfortable silence. She turned to me, her expression a mix of gratitude and vulnerability. "Thank you, I know I've made mistakes, but I want to do better. I want Mia to know that I'm here for her." I nodded, feeling a warmth between us. "She knows, Penelope, you're her mom, and she loves you." The conversation flowed easily after that, as we discussed everything from parenting tips to our hopes for Mia's future. It felt as though we were laying the groundwork for a new family dynamic, one built on collaboration, trust, and a shared commitment to our daughter. As seasons changed, so did our relationship. Holidays became a shared affair. We celebrated Mia's first birthday together, laughing as she dove into her cake, smeared frosting on her face, and squealed with delight. For Thanksgiving, we combined our traditions, creating a festive environment filled with love and warmth. Each time, the bond between Penelope and me grew stronger, tempered by the shared responsibility of raising Mia. But not everything was smooth sailing. There were still tough conversations and misunderstandings. One evening, as we sat on the porch after a visit, I sensed a shift in the air. Penelope looked pensive, and I knew something was weighing on her mind. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "Of course," I replied, feeling a flutter of anxiety. "I've been thinking about my role in Mia's life. I want to be there for her, but I don't want to step on your toes. I don't want to cause confusion for her." I sighed, understanding her concerns. "I think it's important for Mia to know she has two parents who love her. We just need to communicate openly and set clear boundaries." She nodded, relief washing over her features. "I want to be a co-parent, not a competitor. I just want what's best for her." We ended the evening feeling lighter, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As we continued to navigate our new relationship, I often marveled at how far we had come. Months turned into a year, and as Mia approached her second birthday, it became clear that our family unit was evolving into something beautiful. Penelope and I had established a rhythm, a new kind of partnership built on mutual respect and shared love for our daughter. On the day of Mia's birthday, we organized a small celebration with close friends. Laughter filled the air as balloons danced in the gentle breeze. Mia was the center of attention, her cheeks flushed with joy as she tore into her gifts. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude as I watched her play, flanked by both her mother and me. As we sang "Happy Birthday," Penelope and I exchanged glances, a silent acknowledgement of the journey we had embarked on together. After the candles were blown out and cake was smeared everywhere, we took a moment to reflect on the day. "Mia has so much love in her life," I said, feeling the warmth of that truth settle deep in my heart. Penelope smiled, her eyes bright with happiness. "Thank you for being there for her. I'm so grateful. That moment solidified my belief that family doesn't always fit a traditional mold. As long as love and support, in the months that followed, our bond only deepened. I found joy in co-parenting, and Penelope proved herself time and again. She became more involved, attending school events, helping with homework, and celebrating milestones. Mia thrived in this nurturing environment, her laughter echoing through our lives like music. She became a symbol of resilience and hope, a testament to the power of love and second chances. As the years rolled on, I knew that the road had been long and winding, but every moment had led us to this beautiful place. Penelope and I had created a unique family, one where love triumphed over challenges, where forgiveness bloomed, and where Mia would always have a place to call home. And as I watched her grow, I felt an unwavering certainty we had built something extraordinary together, and for that I would always be grateful. The story of our family was just beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead next. With love guiding us, we were ready to embrace whatever came our way, hand in hand, united for the sake of our daughter.